Hey guys, it's Will with Reptiles, and today my girl Peaches and I are going to be showing you how to build your own custom enclosure for your larger reptiles or your monitors or pretty much anything you want to put in there. So let's get started. So this is the enclosure we'll be building today. This one is a 4 by 2 by 1 melamine enclosure. I really like how it turned out. It's got acrylic sliding doors. If you're going to build this, if you've got access to PVC board, I would much rather use PVC, but where I live, it's fairly hard to acquire PVC. So this one was made out of melamine, and you have to do a few extra steps to make sure they seal good and everything. But it turned out really good, so I will walk you through the steps, and so it's easier for you to make this enclosure yourself. First thing, go to your local hardware store and pick out a sheet of melamine or PVC board. The melamine I chose was 3/4 thick, I believe. It might have been half inch. No, it's 3/4. And so this will be the cuts that I made them. I started with the top and the bottom. Each of those are 4 foot by 2 foot. You'll have 2 of those, and you've got your back, which is depending on how tall you make these, but on mine it's 13 and a half, and 13 and a half is to cover the area in the back where these sit, so you have to add a little bit extra for your height. And then your sides is what sets the height of your enclosure. So I made them a foot, so 12 inches. We got 2 of those. Then this over here is your scrap piece, but don't get that thrown away. Keep it because you might want to use it for the lip on the front of your enclosure. You might not, but just in case you do, save that. Next thing, what you're going to want to do once you get your pieces home is take either the top or back piece, the long piece, the 2 by 4 foot piece, in one of your side sections, and you're going to want to stand them up on a flat surface like this. And on the back part, you're going to want to go and always pre-drill. So I've already pre-drilled my holes. Be careful not to get too close to the edges because these edges will blow out, and not too close to the bottom because the same thing can happen. So get your holes pre-drilled. I already put a screw up there to just kind of help me hold it so I could video. And then once your holes are pre-drilled through both pieces, start putting your screws in. And then we're going to do that for both sides. So I'll come back once we're done with that. Now that I got both the sides attached to the bottom, I found the easiest way to do this is just flip the whole setup. Be careful because it's still somewhat unsturdy. Is flip it to its bottom and then set the top part on these. Drill your pilot holes and screw it on. One thing to mention before we carry on is I noticed when they made the cut, this board is a little bit long compared to this end, but it won't matter because I lined up the bottoms nice and right. So when you put the top on, make sure that if there's any excess, you make sure the excess is on this side, because we can make this our front and this part will be our back, because that'll be the part that needs to be flush. So just if you have like any excess, make sure it's all to like the front of the cage for this build, because this little bit is not going to mess us up with what we're doing. Okay, so now I've got the top on. I haven't pre-drilled any holes. I just wanted to make sure all this is lined up nice and flush on this side, and we'll start with this side and go down. What I like to do is I'll pre-drill a hole. Be real careful that nothing moves when you're doing this. And then I'm going to sink a screw in to hold this up, this edge, so I can go down through here and keep everything straight, and then just replicate the same thing on the other side. So I'll put the screw in right quick. And that'll hold this edge where it's supposed to be, and then it'll allow you to drill your pilot holes down along here and set your screws. And we'll come back once we're done with both sides. Okay, so now that the top's on and all screwed in, we're going to want to flip it and put the back on. So with the back, we're going to want to put it on the edge. Remember when I was talking about that excess overhang from the bad cut? The back needs to go on the side that's completely flush, so it sits really nice and you're not going to have any leaks in the back. So this side is going to be facing up where the back's going to sit, and the front of the cage on the other side is going to be what you want to put down on the floor for now while we attach the back. Okay, now that I got the back on, all I have to do is once again drill pilot holes and start setting my screws. Just start like either on the top or bottom and just work your way, making sure everything's going to line up all right. So once you got the back on, the next part we're going to work on is this bottom piece. It sits up a little bit more and kind of leaves a ledge there in the cage. On these smaller cages, I decided to do it. When I build an 8-foot enclosure, I'm not sure if I will. I'll probably only use the tracks, just for the fact for the females, if you use a egg box or something like that, trying to get the egg box out and over this lip might be kind of tricky. So on the larger enclosures, I probably won't do it on them, but for these smaller ones, I don't know, I think it looks nice and it just kind of helps keep some of that seal, and if they're pressing up and stuff, it kind of acts as like a edging so they're not pushing directly on the plexiglass. But so if you're interested in watching me cut this, we'll do that next. If not, just skip to where we start installing the tracks. So now what we have left is to put this lip on, which is this piece. This lip is about, I decided to go with 3 inches. You can make it shorter or less wide or wider than you want, but 3 inches seemed about right with me. I already kind of tacked it up there to hold it for the video, but the same with how you do the rest of it. Just drill some pilot holes and sink them in. And then so when this is on, then we can flip the cage over, and then this will be the bottom of the cage, and then we can install our slides and then the acrylic glass for it. So we'll get to that here in a second. Okay, for the slides that the acrylic or plexiglass or glass that you're putting in is going to slide on, I got this C-channel from, I got this from Home Depot, and it's about 3/4 wide, and I cut both of those to 47.5 inches to fit down here as my slides. And I already drilled the holes in them. I put 4 in. And one thing when you're drilling these holes, a little tip that's going to come in helpful later is drill 1 closer to the ends and then 2 towards the middle, but not directly in the middle. This is very important, and you're going to find out here in a few why. But don't drill directly in the middle. Drill a few inches to either side of them. And also, when we put these in, we're going to be using a lot smaller screws, and you're going to find out why here in a few. Okay, for the slides here, I was talking earlier that I had already drilled them, but I left a few undrilled. Well, not fully undrilled, but I drilled a hole just enough to where the threads of the screw could go through, like this. But you can see there's still kind of a lip, and we don't want that lip. So once you get the main hole drilled, grab yourself a bit that's just about the same size as the head of your screw, and you have to be real careful about this part not to go all the way through, and go slow on this. But take your drill with the bigger bit and slowly just kind of wrap it around a few times, taking off a little bit of material, because when we do that, it cleans it up a little bit. And then when you slip the screw down, it sits almost flush with the C-channel. And that's what we want, so the plexiglass doesn't get hung up on the screws. So do that for all 4 of your holes on each one of the slides. And then here in a second, we'll be ready to put the slides on. Okay, so next we're going to put in the slides, or the glides, for the acrylic. And we're using really short screws. Make sure you have a short enough screw so the top part, you're not going to puncture all the way through, because then you'll have a sharp screw head sticking out here. So it's the same with all the other screws, and it helps to have a really short drill that can fit in this area. Now that we got this drilled out, you set it in here, make sure it fits well, and then just drill your pilot holes where your holes are, and then put your screws in and make sure they sit. They're not going to sit perfectly flush probably, but make sure they sit pretty close so the acrylic or glass isn't getting stuck on them. Only do either the top or the bottom. Only do one to start with. Don't do the other one until you have your glass or acrylic ready to put in the tracks, because that's how we're going to be able to put it or make it fit in there without having to struggle to get it in. So check back here in a second and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got my 2 pieces of acrylic cut. These are 2 foot 1 inch by 8.5 high. If you can get your acrylic cut where you buy it, I would, because cutting it's not fun. I tried to score it and break it. That didn't work, so I took my jigsaw to it. And I mean, it cut it, but it was kind of a pain, and it smells, and then like you also have problems with some cracking, which luckily this will be covered up by the trim. But I mean, if you have the chance, I'd have the other people cut it. So now it comes into play why we didn't install the top one yet. This makes it so the acrylic will, or your slides are easier to get in. So put them together like so, and put your slide over them. So it clips into, not really clips, but holds into place like this. And then you slide it into your bottom track and get everything lined up. Make sure your railing all goes in right. And same with when you install this, make sure to drill pilot holes again before you put the screws in. But the reason why I didn't want you putting the 1 screws more than halfway is because now, if we had put this in, there was no way to get this acrylic or glass in. Now I've still got room. I can put 2 of my screws right here, and then I can slide this down and then put the other 2 right there. And that makes it a lot easier. And then it's just set in place. So pre-drill your holes, do the 2 sides, make sure your screws aren't going to go all the way through, and then move the glass over and do the other 2 sides, just making sure that this is flush with the edge. And then when you get that done, we'll check back in for the final touches. So once you get those screws in, everything should be set in place, and your cage is pretty much done. After this, it's just kind of what you want to do as in vents and stuff like that. I'm gonna wait to put vents in this one until I test it out and see how it holds humidity, then I can decide. One thing you're gonna want to do is, I bought this from Amazon, and it's melamine. It's like a tape, and it's meant to go directly over the edges here, and it's like iron-on, and it seals up these pores, and it fills it in real nice and looks real nice, like the cage I showed you at the beginning of the video. You can also do some sort of paint instead if you don't want to buy this stuff. Any type of water resistant paint, you know, that's safe for animals and stuff like that. Make sure you go around and paint all the exposed edges. All that stuff needs to get filled in on the outside. Now when we look on the inside, you can kind of see where that melamine kind of cracks. What you're going to want to do there is take some sort of sealant, and let's see if we can see it in my other tank. Okay, so that's what I was talking about. We got that real nice with that iron-on stuff. And here you can kind of see it's like a type of silicone, and I just use that around all the seams pretty heavily. Up in here on the back side of this, make sure you get all the exposed edges the best you can, like along here, anywhere anything can get wet. And I would actually suggest finding some sort of coating, whether it be an epoxy or something like that, maybe to cover the bottom section of this, in case, you know, one of your snakes spills its bigger water dish. The water won't sit on this, because, you know, I mean, micro fractures and stuff can happen on your melamine, and when that happens, the water will sink in and it'll expand this and it'll ruin it. And that's why I suggest, if you can buy PVC and do this build, do it with PVC. It would make the cage last as long as you could ever hope for, and it would be a lot lighter and easy to maneuver. But as far as that, for that other cage, I had to take my felt out. This one, it works nice, but the edges I cut weren't smooth like the edges that right on here, and it was getting caught. I might try to find a small piece of like sheet metal to slide down in the other cage, but other than that, you're pretty much done. I mean, other than like I said, just make sure you seal every single part of the exposed wood. And I think I'm even gonna look into doing some sort of coating in here to where it watertight seals the whole bottom of it in case they spill their water. Thanks for watching my video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Give me a comment if you want to see other stuff. I've got a few Burmese pythons that I'm just starting to get back into, and so I can kind of go over some stuff with that. We can even go over more cage building. If you have questions about it, just leave a comment and I'll try to answer anything that you need to know. But anyways, thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.